Got a receiver to work on today. This one's by Pioneer, SX240. This one has an intermittent sound problem. This is actually my unit, so don't get on me for bashing this one around. Either it's fixable or it's not. Let's find out. I've got here a Pioneer SX240 receiver. And her relay click. I don't hear any sound on this thing. Okay, sound just came on. Be a broken connection in here somewhere. Okay, something's obviously loose inside this thing, a connection somewhere. So let's pull the thing apart and see if we can figure out what's wrong with it. As you can see, it's mostly empty space inside the box. Not a heck of a lot in this thing. It's not an overly powerful receiver. It does not have a huge power transformer. But there's not a lot in here. At least it's got a real volume control. A little motor that activates it for the remote control. But somewhere in here, because I give it a smack on the side, the sound came on, so I'm thinking maybe a regulator problem. There's a regulator down here. We'll check and see whether the connections are bad on that. There's the relay. I heard the relay click in. There's just one that I can remove the base from. Oh, this is one of the units, which is kind of neat. We didn't see a lot of these, but they're neat. They're kind of cool. You'll see what I mean. This one's never been apart, obviously, because the base has never been removed. And I don't know why more manufacturers didn't do this. You see, this plate here has been cut so that it can be removed, but they've left tabs in place. This is kind of neat. Watch this. I used to like these receivers when we got these ones in, because you just took your side cutters and you just started cutting. And you cut these tabs away. And then you could open up the bottom to access the board. But what was more important is that you turned this thing around when you were done, and you would see that these tabs would go underneath here like that and onto the set like that, and then you would just find a couple of surplus screws to screw it back in. I got to cut these pins off here. Cut off the sharp pieces. Then you can turn this around the opposite way, and you'll notice that there are holes already pre-drilled for reattaching the base plate with screws once you were done. That was a brilliant idea. I think all the manufacturers that decided to use the solid bottom without a removable cover should have done this. And you notice that they put extra ventilation holes in so that when you turned it around, you still had good ventilation over the heatsink. This was a brilliant design. There was a few of them out there like that, but yeah, any of the receivers that had a design like this sure made servicing them a lot easier than the ones that you actually had to disassemble the whole unit. Love it. That was a great design. You got to get a close look at this board. I mean, just looking at it from here, it doesn't look like there's anything up on it, but I'm just going to get a closer look and see if I can spot any problems. Unfortunately, the regulator is not accessible from the bottom, so I'm just going to remove it here. And it's mounted to its own little circuit board, so I'm going to check that. And I'll have to pull the board if I want to check the other side of it, but I'll check the regulator, where the regulator is attached to its own little board first. Because chances are, if there's a connection that's bad on there, it's going to be here anyway. because this is where all the heat is. And where would we be without the state of California looking out for our health and safety? I don't know how easy it is to see from this angle, but the regulator itself looks fine, but the connections on these wires that go between this little circuit board and the main circuit board, this one here looks to be cracked, as does the middle one. I don't know how easy it is to see on camera, but from my vantage point here, that appears to be cracked. That's the low voltage regulator that supplies power to the preamp circuit and stuff, so that certainly could cause my loss of sound. The speaker relay was kicking in, so I don't think we got a problem in the amplifier section, but we certainly do have a problem somewhere in the audio path, sound cutting out. So I'm just going to redo this one here, these three connections to this, the wires that connect to the board to the actual IC itself. Make sure there's no bridges or anything in there. I can't get to the other ones without actually pulling the board out, and I want to avoid doing that if possible, because I don't want to have to do any more work on this thing than I really have to. It's my receiver. It's not a customer's. It's my receiver, and I'm going to turn around and just dispose of this thing when I'm done with it. So I know I won't get anything for it. This could be one of these devices that I pretty much have to give away to get rid of. So I don't want to put any more into this thing than I have to. This is more of a investigate and see where the problem may have been. Let's just try it and see whether the sound comes on and whether it cuts out when I bang on the set now like it was before. So power on tuner. Okay, I have sound. Where's my balance control? Yeah, right and left channel. Not cutting out. That looks like that was the problem. It's in mono. Where's stereo button on this thing? There, that's stereo. Let's just see whether this thing will store stations. Station call. That was.
Getting up to 100%.
I'll just store some stations in here and see whether the memory holds. So how to set one of these, if you know how to, you can certainly scan tuning this way, but if you know the frequencies you want to put in, you can actually enter them directly. Like for example, if I enter 88.1, we'll go to 88.1. If I want to store that in memory number 2, memory 02. And it'll store it. If I want to go to the next one, if I want to put in, say 93.7, store that into memory number 3. If I want it stereo, I have to make sure I hit the mono stereo button, and then I can enter that into memory 03. Memory 03. Right now, when I enter the function, I didn't store that one as a stereo, so we'll go back and restore that one. There we go, stereo. So now if I select, that's a mono station, that one, it'll store the frequency in the mode that I've selected. So now I've stored my 10 memories. I'll unplug the unit and see whether it remembers them. That way we'll know if the memory battery, if this one uses the memory battery. Some do, and some of them use non-volatile memory, but if the memory battery is dead, it'll forget those frequencies pretty quick. I think this one uses non-volatile. I don't see any memory batteries. Looking on the back here, normally you can see where they are if they're on here. That there is actually the remote sensor. Normally you can see where they have a button cell soldered in if there is one. I don't see one on this one. So it's either going to use a supercapacitor to back up the memory or it's non-volatile. But anyway, it seems to be working. You can set up custom memories for different stations. And that can store a station as well. Interesting. It's got tape 1 DAT, tape monitor number 2. It's got a monitor line on it, a VCR input, CD input, tuner input, and it has a phono preamp, which is something a lot of them don't have. Anyway, we'll just throw this one back together. I think that problem has been solved. We just had a bad connection on this regulator down here. It was actually on the wires that connect through to the main board on this little circuit board here, which is bizarre. Normally I would think that it would be the regulator, but the regulator itself was soldered well. The solder on the other ones seemed to be kind of flimsy. Other than that, I don't see anything else. Nothing else jumps out on this. Look at the soldering on the circuit board. It actually looks pretty good. Get a close-up of that so you guys can see it. But it's actually really well done. I'm impressed. I don't see any, from what I can get at, say some of it I can't see because some of it's masked down here, but everything on here looks to be good. Maybe this transistor here. Really, it doesn't look bad. A little concerned about where the connections at the back go in here, these wires that go in. But I don't see anything moving when I look down there. I'm looking at these ones down under here. That's where the speakers and stuff go in, right? And I don't see anything that looks like it's bad. Oh well, I'm going to put the bottom back on this one. We'll find some screws and we'll attach that bottom plate. I'll show you how the plate goes on. You gotta be careful that you don't use too long of screws in here, otherwise you're gonna short out the board and that would be a bad thing. So you gotta find some relatively short screws, which I have. Actually, that's a little longer, so I'll put this one here in. That screw's not self-tapping. I'll tap it with this other one, I guess. Okay, that's how the bottom goes back on once you've removed it for service. Anyway, I think that about does it on this one. There's not really much to show other than the fact that it was cutting out when I hit it before. Now it appears to be working, so that must be the problem. Top on it. Put this thing up on Craigslist or whatever and find it a new home. Another thing I noticed about this thing is the way it's programmed. So if you want it, this has got 30 memories. So for example, if you wanted to program something into channel 30, for example, if I wanted channel 30, I'd go 000. Aha. Press it. So if I wanted to save, say I wanted to save that into number 30, I would hit memory and then I'd go 1, 2, 3. And it would save it into 30. That's how you do it. Interesting. And so they have 30 memories on this thing. If you wanted to recall number 27, you'd go 3 times. If you wanted to recall number 15, you'd do that. Or number 21, you'd do that 3 times. Or 11, you'd do it twice. Kind of a different way of doing things. Normally, most receivers had like a +10 button. So if you wanted to go to channel 20, you'd press the +10 button and followed by a 0. If you wanted to go to channel 30, you'd press the +10 button twice and then number 0. But different way of doing things. But anyway, that's how this one works. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.